Hi, I have another passage to look at with you today, and this one is from Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make straight your paths." This is a popular verse, and it's one that has brought a lot of comfort to a lot of people, but we want to make sure that we understand it and that we're living it. So notice what it says first. In the first two lines, there is a positive command and a negative command. Notice it says to trust and to not lean. To trust and to not lean. And the first one is positive. Trust, and the object of our trust is the Lord. And the object of our not leaning, our object of our leaning should not be our own understanding. So trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. Now, the key here is that our trust should be in Yahweh, in the Lord, and that the way we trust Him is with all our heart. That is, with our entire inner being. Every facet of who we are trusts in Him. Not just some of the time, and not just a little bit, but all the time and all the way we depend entirely on Him. Notice trust and lean are the same concept stated different ways. If you lean on a fence, you're trusting it to support your weight, right? If you lean on your own understanding, you're trusting that your understanding is good enough to hold up. But if you trust on the Lord, you're trusting that He is ultimately dependable in every sense. So trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. Now, understanding is not a bad thing. In fact, this is the book of Proverbs, after all, and the whole concept is that wisdom is good, and understanding is good, and knowledge is good, and we should seek these things and try to get them. But if we come to depend on our own ability to assess and understand the situation, rather than depend on the Lord, it won't be good. We'll be prideful. We'll assume that we know best. Whereas in reality, the Lord knows. So even as we seek understanding and wisdom and knowledge, and I encourage you this week to read the rest of Proverbs chapter 3, which talks about wisdom, that wisdom is in the context always of knowing and fearing God and trusting and depending on Him. We're at a time when we're trying to understand what global events right now in this crisis. A lot of people are kind of struggling to figure out what's going on with this, and how far does it go, and what could come next, and what might the implications be for me and my family, and how will the world be different. And a lot of folks are wondering, is this the last times, and will there be a mark of the beast situation? And in all of those things, we want to be very careful that we don't come to lean on our own understanding. As we look around, we don't want to start to say, this is what's going to happen, and then that's going to happen, and I just know it. And then we start to fret and we start to worry because we think we know what's going to happen. But in reality, God knows what's going to happen, and we can depend entirely on Him regardless of what things come, right? So positively, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Negatively, don't trust your own understanding. It only goes so far, and it only goes so far as it aligns with the truth that God has revealed. Then notice it keeps going. It says, in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make straight your paths. So we're going to say something about you, and something about God. Him. Of course, Him is still talking about the Lord. In all your ways, acknowledge him. Acknowledge. See this word acknowledge? That's the command. This is the something you do, and then there's the something he does. So we acknowledge him in all of our ways. The word acknowledge is a little tricky because it has kind of come in English, in modern English at least, to mean that you kind of just recognize somebody. You kind of you say, hey, and we might even get offended if somebody doesn't acknowledge our presence, but by acknowledge we just mean a little, oh, how's it going? Or like a celebrity who says, I want to thank God, or an athlete who points toward heaven. It's an acknowledgement. But that's a more narrow meaning. When the Bible uses this word, the root word here is the Hebrew word yada, which is translated over and over again through the Bible, to know. To know. And this is a God-focused word, not a man-focused word. So this isn't wear a cross necklace to acknowledge God to the people around you. This is to see and know and realize God's hand in all of your ways. So it's a focus on who he is, an understanding of who he is in all of your ways. See the word ways? Actually, the word ways and the word paths are two different Hebrew words for the word path. And we experience life as we move through it. We move through time and circumstances and events, and the Bible refers to that as our ways, our path of life. And as we move through each of those things, the time and the circumstances and the events that we encounter, and everything that's involved, our emotions and our relationships, we acknowledge, we know, we seek the face and the hand of God in everything. Not just some things, not just from time to time when things go right, or from time to time when things go wrong and we feel like we need him. But if you're the sort of person who acknowledges God in all of your ways, then look at this blessed promise. He will make your paths straight. See, as you move through life, he will straighten out the path. Now, this doesn't mean that you'll never encounter anything bad. This doesn't mean that the path of your life will be healthy, wealthy, and prosperous necessarily. But what it does mean is that the path of your life will be with God. It will be directed by God, and it will be for good, for his good, in all of your ways. He'll make your path straight. I don't know if you've ever been on a winding path that takes a long time to get somewhere, or perhaps you've lost the path. One time I was hunting in the mountains up here, and deep in the woods I lost my path because I was following a game trail, and boy, I wound up on this circuitous route, and I was just looking for a good path, a straight path that would take me back to where I had come from. God will make straight your path when you acknowledge him in all of your ways, in all of your dealings and doings, and when you depend on him wholeheartedly rather than leaning on your own understanding. And so I encourage you to do that, and I encourage you to read the Proverbs, as they talk a lot about knowing God and wisdom, and above all, trust him. Trust him with all your heart in all of your ways.